From the BBR studios, we're coming at you live but recorded, where we talk about everything racing and a little bit more some bullshit.
I like bullshit.
Yeah, I'm Chris and you are.
I'm Corey.
And I've been promoted to host as of one of the past episodes.
Congratulations, Chris. You're now the host.
This is episode 8, and we've got some great stuff in store for you.
First, are you here?
Jeez.
I'm here. Are you here?
I am here on this beautiful Sunday evening. How are you?
Fantastic. Let me ask you a question, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Out of all the cars that you've driven, what's kind of a shitty car?
Oh, well, depends on what we're talking about. Are we talking about a piece of shit car or a car that was like just a bad car?
Both, I guess.
I guess. Maybe that's answering my second question. I've had a lot of cars throughout my days, and one in particular that I do remember was a 79 Ford Mustang Cobra. Yes, the very first year of the Fox body.
Yeah.
And it had a cool little Cobra design on the hood and everything. That thing, I think, was putting out about 165 horsepower.
Downhill,
that's right.
Downhill, downwind.
I remember, though, one time I was like, you got to understand, I'm like 19 years old, and I'm learning about cars still. And I did the brakes on the car myself. Mm-hmm. And I remember coming home one day, and I said, Mom, my brakes are falling off in the back because I had lost all the little springs on the. It was
drum brakes.
They were drum brakes, and all the springs were popping off and falling off. And I showed mom the springs, and it's kind of like a cool story that we've been talking about every time we talk about doing brakes on cars.
Yeah, you forget the springs.
Yeah, because of the springs. Yeah, so hey, it did stop though. I want to say.
I would say my shittiest car was probably an '89 Beretta.
Actually, I remember that. Was that like a purplish color or brown?
It was silver.
Was it silver?
Yeah, I had a black Grand Am too.
Oh, maybe that's what
but
I'm thinking of.
The Beretta was kind of the shittier of the two. The Grand Am seemed like it was more racy, but the Beretta was a 5-speed. Nonetheless, this segues into our news topic, the 24-hour Lemons race. They just released the schedule. They've got like 30 races throughout the country. We will highlight some of the ones in the Midwest, but I'll have a link below where you can see all of them. Have you ever heard of 24 Hour
I've
Lemons?
heard of it, and I've seen little clips of it, but tell me a little bit about it, because it's basically pieces of crap.
Yeah, so it's $500 or less car. So, and they're pretty strict about it. So the idea is you have to be able to purchase it for $500, and it's not what it would be worth since you owned it for so long, or you paid $500, 30 years ago when you bought it or whatever. It's what you could afford it right now, and they're pretty particular about it because they actually have some rules I'll talk about in a second. But they release their schedule, and we'll say it towards the end. Whenever you buy one of these cars, it has to be $500, like I said. Safety equipment doesn't count towards the $500. For instance, roll cage, seat belts, all that stuff doesn't count towards the $500. And you're able to sell stuff off the original car to try to offset maybe some upgrades that you might want to do.
So if you pay for $500 for a car and you're able to sell something for $100,
you can use the $100 for something else. The other things that don't factor in is the tires, wheel bearings, ball joints, anything that's safety related per se. Also, the exhaust past the headers doesn't count.
Oh,
so because they want to make sure you have exhaust all the way at the back, that type of stuff. People get creative though, because it's funny when you look at the rules, like the exhaust one. So evidently somebody had entered a car with a turbo, because technically it's part of the exhaust.
Oh,
so there's a lot of gray areas.
That is,
but
great.
They actually have a group of people that will inspect your car, and they'll give you what they call a BSF number. It's called a bullshit factor number. And however much money they think you spent more than the $500, you get docked one lap.
Oh.
So say you spent, they think you spent, $100. That's 10 laps down you start with.
Oh.
But there's all kinds of crazy rules in this. Like if you're out there and you get black flagged, a couple times for hitting somebody, they'll actually bring you in, and then you get stuck in the pits for a certain amount of time. But they'll even do anything even worse. Like, for instance, they'll get these spikes and put it in your bumper facing your radiator. So if the next time you hit somebody, it just breaks your radiator.
Nice.
I've seen pictures of them. They duct tape a guy to the hood, or not the hood, the roof of the car, and made him drive around the pits with a bullhorn, apologizing to everybody. So it's a fun a really funny thing to do. I'll tell you, the actual registration is around $1,755 for a 4-person race team. Plus, if you want to race in it, you have to buy a $100 license through the group in order to actually participate. So there's some cost involved there. It's not really cheap, but once you kind of get in there, plus you can get some sponsorships too. The sponsorships obviously cannot pay for making the car more than $500, but they recommended in their rules there that you could use it for like hotels and stuff like that. And they also specifically put performance enhancing drugs.
Performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah, male performance enhancing drugs is what they said in the rule. So it's actually a really funny.
So
idea.
there's a judge actually saying your car is worth less at or more than $500.
Yeah, so it's a group of people, and there is no protesting either. That's part of the rule package. There's no appeal process.
What's going to prevent somebody from selling someone a car that's worth $2,000 to somebody and saying, "Here's $500"?
Well, that's the idea.
They're actually physically looking at it and saying, "Oh, this is worth more than $500."
That's exactly what it is. It's like you can't just get a great deal on it, or something like that. It's got to be in the spirit, I guess, and I guess it's subjective, but they've been doing it for so long. I mean, they've probably been doing it for 15, 20 years now. One thing I saw, and I don't know how long this has been going on, but they actually have a bounty out on the first full EV to win gets $50,000 in nickels.
Oh,
so
yes.
It's $50,000 in nickels, but still, whenever somebody's able to do that, I just don't know how long. I mean, that's a long 24 hours, a long time for a battery, and plus you have to win.
Yeah. So are you doing this with team members?
Yeah, you have up to 4 drivers.
And and I'm looking at the schedule here, and we kind of go over it. There's not too far away from us.
No, well, they call the one I've listed here the Midwest Series. There's also an East, a South, a Gulf, and a West. But this is the Midwest, so this is kind of the center of the country. It's the reason I decided to talk about these. But we have one in May 11th, 12th in South Haven, Michigan, June 15th, 16th in Deer Trail, Colorado, July 13th, 14th in Joliet, Illinois, September 7th and 8th in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and September 14th, 15th in Deer Trail, Colorado again.
I can tell you Colorado and Michigan are very far apart.
Yeah. To me, I can't believe Colorado was whipped in there to the Midwest. I would have thought that would have been a West Coast state. But nonetheless, it's part of the Midwest Series. And again, they have about 20 to 30 races, and I will link them in the show notes to where you can go.
I think, this Illinois one or maybe even the Michigan, maybe we should think about
it sounds like a great time. So really, realistically, if you're doing it in the spirit of the race, you'll probably need about $2,500.
Yeah,
is what it'll take for a team of 4 to do it.
And so that's what you need to visit our GoFundMe account. No, I'm just kidding, guys.
Or buy a T-shirt. We got T-shirts for sale over here.
Yes. No, I think that looks like a really good time.
Yeah.
Hey, we just need 2 more drivers.
Yeah. Well, we could find those easy.
Hey,
it's just
anybody interested?
Getting the car, and then getting the entry fee paid is going to be the expensive part. Plus, to make sure it doesn't fall in problems with our
other schedules.
But the cool thing is we already got a rig with a trailer. I mean, on-site sleeping and all that. So it's something we definitely want to do in the future for sure.
Yeah, we're going to look into that for sure.
All right, so this topic of the old episode, I believe it's 8 now.
Yeah, 8. Yep.
We are going to talk about the basics of drag racing. And I know that we've kind of hit a lot of drag racing stuff recently, and it's really because this is what we know. Again, we're going to try to find some non-drag racing guests and topics to talk about. But we know this one, at least we think we do. Not to say that we're not going to get something wrong, because I'm sure I'm going to have to use that fake news button again. But, let's just talk about the basics of it, Chris.
Yeah, so the first thing you need to do is you need to have a car to race. And depending on how fast you want to go, I mean, you could really use your minivan if you wanted to, in all reality.
Yeah. And you wouldn't really need anything extra. You just go out there and do it.
Yeah, as long as you have a seatbelt, and I think you still have to wear a helmet no matter how slow you go, right?
Yep.
So that's basically it. But those are some really good cars out there.
End of podcast. Thanks, Chris.
Yes, that's it. See y'all later. Join us next time as we find something else to talk about.
If you're willing to go slow, absolutely. Pretty much factory Honda Civic, you'll be just fine with basically just a helmet and long sleeve pants, because most NHRA tracks require that at least. Some of them require jackets too, but you don't have to have any SFI stuff. You just whatever you got. Really, the only safety equipment you need on a slow car is a helmet.
Yeah.
And even I think that sometimes is even depending on what track you're going to, that's questionable too.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about if you're going to go a little bit faster. We're going to say somewhere a little, 750 or so in the eighth, which we're going to be talking bracket racing here because that's going to be the home gamers' biggest thing.
Yeah.
And around 8 to 750 in the eighth is when you're going to need a few extra things. We've got a great video on our YouTube channel about all the safety equipment that we require, and we will link it in the show notes.
Well, not
below.
that we require, but what they require us to have.
Yeah, my bad. The NHRA's requires.
We're not a sanctioning body here.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe one day. But nonetheless, the only thing you got to do to prepare is you got to get your car, and then you got to meet the certain amount of rules. For instance, if you have drag slicks, you have to have a drive shaft loop. Mm-hmm. So there's a few things that you're going to have, and if you go a certain speed in the eighth, which I believe is the 750 range, you're going to have a roll bar. So if you didn't buy a car previously, you're going to get that done. But basically, the stuff that you need to prepare is you got to just make sure your vehicle is ready for that. And
so you need to really look at. You can just go to the track and ask, what rules are necessary,
applicable to me. Yeah,
applicable to your car and what you're doing. Obviously, the faster you go, the more stuff is required in your car, the more safety equipment and stuff. But let's just say you're taking your car off the street, and let's just say it's a 12-second in the quarter mile, which would equate to 8 seconds in the eighth?
Yeah, somewhere
around there. Kind of what you were talking about.
Yep.
You don't need a lot of expensive equipment or safety features or anything.
Especially a trophy class. In our area, our 8th mile tracks, they have what they call a trophy class, which means it's not line lock, it's a foot brake only class. So there's really very little cost involved. Most of those guys just bought a factory truck or car and then just is out there having a good time doing it.
Yeah, I saw a F-250 out there one time, and it was it was doing like 10 seconds in the eighth.
Whenever we have troubles, I almost think about unhooking my race rig, the toter home, and going out there and racing in the trophy class.
Well, he might make it into second gear by the time he hit the 8th mile.
It's a 10-speed,
Yeah,
boys.
10-speed, yes, that's right.
I do wonder how many speeds I can get up to in the 8th mile. It's not that many, I bet. I mean, it shifts a lot really fast in the beginning, but I would say I'd probably get to 5th maybe.
Well, at least you wouldn't have anybody behind you yelling at you like you usually do.
That's true. Yeah, what is it? Operation Oil Down. I was the Exxon Valdez of the Ohio Valley there for a little while. So preparing, and you also need to make sure the car has all the nuts and bolts it needs. Make sure everything's tight. So you don't go to the track and end up lose a wheel or something. You don't want to do that.
So once you figured out that you're going to race and you're within the rules that you know of, I mean, you're going to arrive to the track. You want to make sure that you want to get there soon enough that as soon as the gates open, really, so you can get your pits set up and everything, and you can kind of look around if you hadn't been at that track before. Make sure you know where the tech area is, where the staging lanes are, where the ticket booth is, where all those things are, because they're going to be very important in you driving around looking for things in the middle of it.
So whenever we go to a track, particularly a track we've never been to, we'll definitely get there a day before and we'll walk the track. With our speeds, that matters, track surface and everything else. And the shutdown area matters and the turnoffs and everything else. But it's also good to get the lay of the land, how wide the lanes are, or where the burnout box is and compared to the starting line, and everything like that kind of matters when you're going a little faster. But for the guy that's just kind of getting started, just kind of look around and see where those things are, particularly where the staging lanes are, what numbers they are, if they're left to right to left, because a lot of times they'll announce what class you're in.
And that's important.
You
need to make sure you have the ability to hear the announcer.
Yep.
Either a lot of them will have a radio station you can listen to, or make sure you're near a speaker where you can hear it, because it gets loud there, and if you're not close enough, you won't be able to hear what lane you are assigned to.
Yep.
So that's very important to know. Pulling up blindly to the staging lanes and not knowing where you're at is going to be a mass confusion for everybody involved.
You don't want to embarrass yourself either.
Yeah.
You go into the no time class accidentally and you get lined up with a 4.5 second Mustang. You're gonna look silly.
But hey, if you're driving, say a station wagon, and you're in the same lane as a Top Fuel dragster,
Yeah.
you're gonna know pretty quick you're in
That's
the
a
wrong
problem.
lane.
Unless
Yes.
there is a station wagon, though, I think would give him a good run for his money.
Yes, it's a Zephyr wagon. That's what
Yeah.
it is, not a Fairmont. It's
Okay.
a Zephyr, yeah.
Well, he has shown some interest in coming on the podcast and talking about that
Yes,
car too. So we're going to have
exactly.
him on. But that's a pretty awesome car. So you're going to be eventually called up to the lanes after, what you need to do at the track is make sure you're full of fuel in the pits anyway. Full of fuel, you got all your safety equipment. You're going to have to get teched in. So the first matter of business after you figure out the lay of the land is you're going to have to figure out wherever they're teching people in. They usually announce it and say, hey, tech's in, lane 8 of the staging lane. So you'll need to drive up there, show that guy your safety equipment, show the car and everything else that he requires, and that you're gonna hand in your tech card, and that card's gonna basically have your car number, which you also need to put on the side of your car with some white shoe polish or something, because they're gonna need it to keep track of where you're at and all that. And then he's going to give you the final approval to get on the track.
Yep.
And sometimes they'll give you your max speed too.
Yep.
They'll say you can't go any faster than this, and they'll let you get away with it as long as it's close once.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll throw you out.
Yeah, if you're doing 20 or 30 over your speed, they're not going to let you.
No,
out
it's,
there.
if you go out there and just blow it out of the water, it's definitely a
Yeah.
problem. All
Yeah.
right. So you're going to do that, and then eventually, drag racing is a little bit of a hurry up and wait sport. So eventually, and hopefully in the next few minutes, especially if you're going to a test and tune, you're going to hear your call assignment. So let's just say that you're going to be in Sportsman Tree, and they're going to say, hey, you're in lanes 2 and 3 or something. And you'll drive up there, and generally, if you did the lay of the land earlier, 2 is going to be in the left lane or right lane, depending on where everything's at. But it's pretty self-explanatory. So, and we'll just talk about our home track. If you're in 2, you're going to be in the left lane. But sometimes they come around the opposite way, and then you're going to be in the right. So if that matters to you, which lane you're in, then that's something you need to kind of figure out before you go up there. But they'll usually give you 1 or 2 lanes to get in. And you'll get up there, and you'll need to make sure that you have all your safety equipment ready with you and ready to go.
Yep.
In staging lanes itself, eventually they're going to actually tell you to suit up. So you're usually going to drive up there without any equipment on if you don't want to. Most of the time we kind of drive up with just our pants on, or maybe pants and jacket if it's cold. But we put all that stuff on once they tell us to suit. That's depending on how busy the track is, and if there's any oil downs or anything like that. That could take just a few minutes to a few hours, really.
Yes. Yep.
But eventually they're going to tell you to suit up, and that's when you're going to get in your suit, helmet, seatbelt, and be ready to start the car and move forward.
Yep.
You got anything else in the staging lanes?
Yeah, so you're just going to be, if you're actually in a competition and not just qualifying or doing time trials, you can size up your competition, and see.
Meet some people, too.
Meet some people. Yeah, definitely go out and talk. I mean, if you're waiting around, talk around, see what everybody else is running and stuff. It's also a good time for you to check your tire pressure if you are worried about that. If you're running slicks, especially, you're going to need to really check that.
Good point. I didn't even think about that. That's the place you check it last.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, so especially with slicks, sometimes you'll see these cars with these little drapes, these little curtains on the side of the rear wheels off the car, and I always wondered what the heck that was for quite a while. And then I realized it was only on the side that the sun was shining on the car. And so that sun actually increases the tire pressure. And so they don't want that. You want to have equal tire pressure on both sides. If one is absurdly higher than the other,
cause some issues.
You could go left or right pretty quick. So check your tire pressure in the rear and make sure that it's even. I guess in the front too, for that matter. But
Yeah, the fronts are important too to get a very consistent reaction time. You're going to want to have your front tires set at whatever they're supposed to be. We set ours at, generally, I think I set mine at 45 pounds.
We set them up pretty high.
Yeah, and that's just the higher you go, the quicker your reaction time can be. But if you need to shave some, you can air some of those tires out and go that direction too. So you got the staging lanes taken care of, and then eventually they're going to tell you to you're going to pull on forward, get into the starting line. So in the starting line procedure is if you are going to run slicks, you're going to do a burnout, right? If you're running a hard tire, sometimes they won't let you do a burnout.
Yeah, you have to go right around.
You have to go around the water box.
Yep.
So that's, again, in your pre-check of the track, you need to look to see if that's a problem for you to do that. Also, sometimes they'll let you go around it with your front tires, and then you back into the burnout box. Sometimes that's how they want you to stage them up. If you're an all-wheel drive car, you're going to probably avoid the burnout box completely and just go all the way around it and go right up to the starting line. But there's going to be a burnout process if you're running slicks. Most people will. Most tracks, unless you're exceedingly fast, they usually do not want you to burn out past the starting line. So you'll probably get into the water and you'll probably put your foot on the brake a little bit and give it some gas to get your tires start moving. When you start seeing a little bit of smoke, you're probably cleaned off and a little bit of heat in them. You're probably ready to go. Other guys, if you have a really fast car, which I don't know why you'd be needing to listen to the basics of drag racing on this, but you are going to probably do a burnout, and people are going to cheer for you in the stands because it's going to be a big, smoky, fun burnout. The ones I like doing.
Yes.
But then there's also a backup procedure to get back to the starting line. So
one important thing to note that, if you're driving through the water box and you stop, you watch for the guy that's next to you, the one of the official guys. Most of the time they'll have a guy that tell you you're past it, go ahead and stop.
Yeah.
But do not do your burnout until you were told to. Even if the car that's on the tree takes off, that does not automatically mean go ahead and start your burnout. Wait for them to tell you because there could be something going on the track. They may tell you to hold. Always pay attention to the officials and make sure that you're understanding what they're trying to tell you.
So right before you start your burnout, that's the one person you should be caring about is usually either the guy that pulled you into the burnout box or the starting official that's just ahead of you. But one of them are going to give a very obvious sign, moving their hands or something in order to tell you to do your burnout.
Yes, exactly. So once you do your burnout, it's time to actually stage. And just to be a very basic conversation about how this works, there's 2 beams on each side, on each lane, and each person breaks both beams. And how you are staged is you creep forward, you break the first beam that sets up your first light on your tree.
It's called pre-stage.
Pre-stage, exactly. Then your opponent will do the same thing with theirs. They become pre-staged. Then you creep a little bit further and you break the second beam that causes both of your lights to turn on, which means you're fully staged. And as soon as your opponent does the same thing, then that's when it starts off the sequence. Once the starter hits the button, it starts the sequence of you going down the tree and then you getting the green light or red light if you're like me.
And this could be one of 2 ways for you. More than likely, if you're just starting out, you're going to do a sportsman tree, which you'll have 3 ambers that'll go in a half-second interval. So 1, 2, 3, and then a green light. Most cars are going to be set up to where you actually take off on the 3rd amber. So the 1, 2, 3, you take off then. Generally, you'll get a green light. If you're a little bit too fast or the car's too fast, you'll get a red light like Chris over here.
Yes, definitely.
But for the most part, one thing to know is try not to double beam a guy. This is one scary part of drag racing. It's scary only because it's embarrassing, is if you go up there and you stage and pre-stage, or pre-stage and stage before the other guy is pre-stage, it's called double bulbing somebody. And a lot of guys do not like that because it throws their program off or whatever, and they'll just sit there and wait on you.
Yeah.
And particularly if you are in competition, they could just wait on there as long as they want and just burn you down.
Yep.
So do not ever do that. If you do that, quickly, if you're able, quickly go in reverse and get out of that second beam so that you're just pre-staged. Actually, to be quite honest with you, the best thing to do is come all the way out, both pre-stage and stage, and then start over.
Yeah. If you back up and you hit the one beam back on, make sure you put it back in drive.
Yeah, well, that's the reason that you have to clear both bulbs.
Yes.
So in racing, there's some guys that don't do it, and they should probably be told to do it. Is if you're backing up and you do not go forward to fully stage, then that could mean you're still in reverse. So you need to make sure you're in forward. That's why I say pull all the way back.
Yeah, it's best to do that.
One thing that you can do, and I've heard people do accidentally, I've seen it happen in person, they accidentally stage off their back tire.
Yeah.
Which please don't do that.
No.
Because that make you look real foolish.
Yeah.
Generally, the tree is going to be 10, 20 foot in front of you to the left or right.
Yeah.
All right. So if it's like right by your door and you're getting pre-stage beams, you're probably staging off your back tire.
Yeah. And everybody's going to be looking at you funny, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And so, make sure you don't do that. All right. So quickly you get that done, you get down the track, and you have to finish line drive if you're trying to be competitive. I personally, for a guy that's just starting out, just run your car all the way out
Yeah.
as many times as it takes to get everything done prior. Very good, and you feel very comfortable with it. Once you start getting good at it, you'll start finish line driving, and that's going to be a whole nother segment entirely.
Oh,
But you're
yeah.
just going to, if you're too far in front of the guy, you make sure you slow down and don't take too much stripe because you can end up breaking out. There's a whole bunch of rules.
Yes.
That will come along when you start getting some experience at drag strip.
Yeah.
But make sure everything before this point is good, solid, and safe, and you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
After you finish line drive, and hopefully you take the one, you're going to go to the ticket booth. You're going to drive around. They're going to give you a ticket. The ticket, depending on, let's see, I'm going to grab one. Depending on when, what kind of track you go to, if it's quarter or eighth mile, is about how many numbers you're going to get. But the first one is going to generally be, it's going to be dial. All right, so that's whatever you dialed in.
And
If you're
look-
testing tuning, it doesn't matter.
But let's say one real quick
Yep.
because we haven't touched on it. So you can index race, which the track tells you what you're going to run,
Right.
and then you bracket race, which you tell the tracks. And I love how you said you tell the track what you're going to run,
Right.
And so as you dial in, you do your qualifying runs. You can see what your car is running. That's the number you put on your window,
Yep.
and that's what you're going to come on your time.
So that will be that first number is the dial, which again, we're trying to get you on the track and get you laps and get you having fun before you start worrying about that. But the next number is going to be your reaction time. All right. And Chris on this particular run, he had a negative 0.005 reaction time, which is really close to being positive or good.
Oh, really close to being perfect.
Yeah, really close, really close. But he was 0.005 too fast off the Wii Pro Tree race, so it's different. But
Think about that. That's 5,000ths of a second. Think about that. How short of a time that
very
is.
short. And the guys that are real competitive, they are doing those numbers in the positive every time.
Yep.
But they have delay boxes. We'll go into that some other time. The next number you're going to see is 60 foot, and that's how long it takes your front tires to from breaking the beam to interrupting the beam at the 60 foot mark. So if there's different, I don't want to get too crazy in the weeds here, but this is a good indication of how well your car launches off the line. In this particular case was 148 for Chris. Then you're going to get a 330, which is half of a 660, which is an eighth mile. And on this one, it's 4.157 on Chris's. And then the next one is going to be the eighth mile, which he ran a 6.43. Those are the numbers we're talking about, and we're not going to go any further with that because we're going to talk about eighth mile racing here. But those are the numbers that you need to work with. The reason they give you the 330 is you can see where you either went too fast or too slow. If your front half was too fast because either you got a little too much traction and you took off a little different, you could see that in those numbers. And then if your back half is too fast, you'll see it between those two numbers. So it's your back and front halves. All those matter. That's what you're looking at, and that's what you're trying to improve on. Most guys, beyond going, ETs, the best thing you could do for your program is get a very consistent and as fast as you can make a 60-foot time. Your 60-foot time, if you're going to use any weather software in the future to try to predict times, your 60-foot has to be exact every time. And when I say exact, they want you down to the thousands.
Yes.
But, a half thou, so that's 0.005 of a second. That's within reason of a predictor to be able to do their software stuff.
Yeah, if you looked at all my slips there, so that slip you just happened to pick up, that's when we blew the blower gasket.
Oh, yeah?
So that's why I was a little slower. But if you look
Okay.
at all my other 60-foot times, they're all 141 or 142, maybe a 143. But yeah, that's very consistent.
Yep.
And so that means that first split, that first half of the track was more consistent than the second half.
Right.
If my times changed.
Ideally, they want you, like, if I was to have one of my slips, it would have been a 132 or a 128 60-foot, depending on
now
what
you're just
tune-up.
trying to one
No,
up me here.
I'm not. I'm just telling you that if you look at my time slip, if I'm on a 132 tune-up for a 9.0 pass, it's 132, 132, 132. And then the third number will be between a 2 and an 8. But it's always a 132.
Yeah.
So that's what you really want if you want the predicting software to work well.
This is my little brother for you here, guys. Always trying to one up me. He's even got his Wally sitting here on the desk.
This one, that little guy. Don't worry about that little guy.
Oh yeah.
All right, so those are basically the basics of drag racing. If you're new to the sport or what we try to do, we can actually go on another topic later on, a different one, is just like what people mean by certain things. So if, for
Like
instance,
lingo.
lingo.
Yes.
For instance, real quickly, and this we won't go any further, if I tell Chris comes up to me and asks me what I ran, I'll say an 02, and he'll know that means a 902.
Yeah.
Or if I tell him a 98, he knows I ran an 898 because it's so far away from what I was indexing at.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit in lingos and stuff that we do.
And when he comes up and says, I broke it, we already know what that means.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, he probably knew because he heard the tractors fire up. Had to clean the track off.
Oh, jeez.
All right, cool, man. Well, I hope you found some enjoyment, especially if a guy that's never drag raced before. This would be great. Hopefully, we got some guys that are tuning in that are just here for the motorsports, and this is a little something for you.
If you'd like to learn any more about the drag racing aspect, email us, talk to us, linelockedpodcast@gmail.com. Look at us at linelocked.com for our website, and you can also find us on YouTube. We're actually presently on the Blood Brothers Racing channel on YouTube, and you can find us there. And we would love to chat with you. And we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up, a lot of cool interviews coming up with some other drag racers, either, common guy to top fuel guys.
Yeah, we got some big names coming.
Yeah, and we're really excited about that.
Those take a little bit of time to get set up, so don't expect them in the next week or two, but we'll have some big names. I've reached out to a lot of people, and I've gotten some feedback, so we will have something cool coming up.
Yep.
All right, do we have any viewer mail, Chris?
No viewer mail. I didn't want to do it today.
Okay.
Because I was too lazy to even look it up.
All right. Maybe next time.
Maybe
guys.
next time.
All right. Well, then I guess we'll just tell you that you need to make sure you like and subscribe to this thing. You know, we're trying to put out some good info for you guys and have an enjoyable podcast for it.
All right, man. Well, I think that means we're out.
Yeah, I think it is.
All right. So we're going to do it right this time.
We don't have a timer, Chris.
Well, okay. I am Chris.
And I'm Corey.
And we are
Line Locked.
Oh, that was like really close.
It was close. It was closer than we've ever been, I think.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you next time, guys.
All right. See you guys.
Be safe.